Tonight, inside San Quentin as you've never seen it. What's it like to serve a life term in one of the world's most notorious prisons? We'll start with Jeff Elkins. First, Jeff, what did you do? Why are you here?
When I was 19, I took someone's life for their drugs and their money.
What was the situation? Where were you? What happened?
I was just out of high school, and I was caught up in drugs and alcohol, and I had no right to do what I did. I ended up blaming the guy for all my problems, and I never meant or intended to kill him, but that's what happened. I put myself in a position to where it cost him his life and mine also.
How'd you kill him?
I hit him with a baseball bat.
Did you confess?
Yes, I did.
How long you been here?
I've been here at San Quentin for the last 12 years. I've been locked up for the last 27 years.
What was it like to kill someone?
It was horrible. It was terrible. It was a nightmare.
Did you feel terrible at the time?
Afterwards, yes, I did. Yes, I did.
Felt remorse?
Yes, I did.
Felt you got what was deserving?
I deserved the sentence that I got, yes. Had a normal childhood. So pretty much a normal kid. We lived in Michigan. Went to church every Sunday. I was altar boy and sang in the choir in the Methodist church. And just had a typical snowball fights in the winter and swimming in the summer, and typical American kid. I didn't know things were really wrong in my life until I woke up in prison. But looking back, had I seen or paid attention to some of the warnings, who knows what might have been different. But when I started doing drugs, that was a definite sign that something wasn't right. And I started doing drugs and stealing. And I liked the way it made me feel. It was fun. Everybody else was doing it, and it was the thing to do. Smoking pot and drinking beer. From the beer to the hard alcohol, and then speed and coke. I lost control probably my senior year in high school. It became in the morning, at lunchtime, and after work. It just progressed from there. And then I was introduced to cocaine, and it really, well, expensive as that was, you know. Then I lost my job. I stole a bank bag from my work, and that should have been a clue. You know, it was to support my habit. I was out of control. My thinking was so messed up because of all the drugs that I didn't really have a clue looking back. My mom and dad divorced, and I'd been in other smaller trouble, and they didn't quite know how to deal with it. My mom was working 2 jobs. She wasn't there. She was trying to keep a roof over our house, put food on the table. And my dad had issues of his own, and I avoided him whenever possible because I knew, you know, if I ran into my dad, I was in trouble. So I avoided him. So I quit school, and I went to work full time. And that's when I really started going downhill. I was getting loaded all the time, spent all my money. I'd get paid on Friday, and by Monday, I wouldn't even have $2 to buy a burrito from the Roach Coach a lunch wagon that would come by at break time. If I remembered, the car would be full of gas and I'd have enough gas for the week. That should have been a clue. And then I got introduced to cocaine, and then it just got worse from there. The next thing I know, I mean, I was getting loaded all the time, partying. My life was one big party, and I just worked to support my party habits. And then one day I realized I was in debt, big time. And then one day after that, Larry, the guy that introduced me to the coke, told me, he said, you know what, you're out of control. No more. I'm not giving you no more. He said, I don't care how much money you come to me with, I'm not going to be a part of this no more. So what happened, I blamed him for my problems. He's the one that introduced me to the coke. He was my weed connection. So in my screwed up way of thinking, it was all his fault. And now he was going to cut me off. So I decided that he had what I needed, and if he wouldn't give it to me, I'd take it. basically the plan was to get as much money and drugs as I could to run away with. And then I would find some place where I wouldn't want to be getting loaded all the time. Which, I mean, I was running from the wrong thing. I was trying to run away from myself, and that doesn't work. So what happened is I ended up killing him for his drugs and his money. I didn't plan to, but that's what happened. And I'm responsible. Nobody's to blame for that but me. I made really bad choices, and it was just, I mean, it's amazing how one bad choice leads to another. And pretty soon you find yourself in the middle of something that if you don't talk to somebody, you can't see any way out, and it's always the wrong way. And so the next thing I knew, I'd committed a murder. I was sitting in the county jail. I was facing murder charges, first-degree murder. And for a while I was facing death penalty charges, but thankfully they got dropped. But I was sitting in, I was in the county jail. Everybody's looking to hang me, and here comes this guy. I get called into an interview room, and there's a guy in plain clothes, and I'm thinking it's another detective, you know, wanting to talk to me. I don't know how many detectives I'd talk to, questions I'd answer. But the guy tells me, hey, God told me you need a pastor. I'm your pastor. And I said, wait a minute, I don't need no pastor. I need a lawyer. I'm in a lot of trouble. He says, no, you don't understand, I'm your friend. And I said, wait a minute, I could use a friend. Well, that's when I was introduced to Pastor Steve Matson. He was a youth pastor. And I came back to the Lord then. I started out with the Lord when I was really young. And I ran away from God. And my running led me to county jail facing murder charges, and the rest of my life in prison. And it cost somebody else their life too. But what I did was so ugly and so terrible that I thought I needed to make it not look so bad. And so when I went to trial, I got on stand and I lied on the stand. I'm thinking they don't make you swear on the Bible anymore. And I got up there and they put me on the stand and they said, okay, do you swear to tell the whole truth, you know, tell the truth, the whole truth, nothing but the truth, so help you God. And your hand's on the Bible. So I swore the oath, and then I purposely, willfully, and knowingly lied. So I thought that God was done with me. I figured, that was the unforgivable sin. So I was convicted of first-degree robbery murder. 25 years to life in prison I was sentenced to. So I was pretty sure God was done with me now. Then after I got stabbed, October 1981, I got stabbed over drugs. Go figure. I still hadn't learned.
There were drugs in prison?
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. And got put in the hole. They told me, we find you guilty of being the victim of an assault. You're a predator. You're a danger to the population. 7 months in Max B. And I said, wait a minute, how can I be a victim and a predator? And they said, well, you got stabbed, and it's like 21 days after the incident, and he's just now coming out of serious condition in the hospital. So you're a predator. We know about you. And they put me in the hole. And so I did 7 months in Max B in San Quentin. Well, it's not really solitary confinement. You're away from the main population. You're single-celled, but a couple of times a week you go to the yard with the rest of the guys that are on the same status that you are. And they shower, the showers and stuff, you went one at a time. They had two of the cells in the middle tier were showers, and the cop would come by and you'd get 10 minutes to go down and take your shower every other day. And which was better than the way it was before. They put the showers on the tiers, because before that they'd take a group of you into the showers, and if some idiot decided to get in a fight with another one, they were shooting at you while you're butt naked in the shower. And I experienced that a couple of times. That wasn't a lot of fun either. Saw a lot of ugly things in prison. I wasn't done with God. God was done with me, because I'd committed the unforgivable sin. Well, after 15 years in prison, I was sitting in an AA meeting that I was forced to go to, and I heard a Christian guy in there. Actually, there was two of them. And they shared some things that made me think, well, wait a minute, maybe God's not done with me after all. This guy was one of the most sincere guys that I'd known. So I went to him and told him, hey, I got to talk. I need to talk to you. So we sat in there and I told him pretty much my story. The chaplain grabbed me by the arm real gently. And when he touched me, a peace came over me that it's like, whoa. He says, come on in my office. I've been praying for you. I want to talk to you. And he gets out the Bible and he starts reading John 3:16. And he read about half of it, and then from somewhere deep inside, it just came out. And I quoted the other half of it, and he looked at me kind of funny. So he went back to the Bible and he started, I don't even remember what the other verse was, but he read a few words and it came out again. He closed the Bible and he put it down. He says, okay, you've known the Lord before. Now you want to tell me the truth? So I did. I told him everything. And when I got finished, he showed me in the Bible how I'd believed the lie of the enemy, that I had not committed the unforgivable sin, that it was God, in fact, calling me back, that it was the whole reason that I was there, and asked if him and some of the brothers could pray for me. So they took me in the front room and they laid hands on me and prayed for me. And at one point during the praying, everything kind of went dark, and I felt like I was falling. And I heard, I felt a big hand. Just about the time I thought I'd hit the floor, I felt this big hand, like as big as my whole body. He caught me. And I heard a voice behind me. Told me, don't worry, son, I've got you. And he stood me back up. And it was the Lord. And he set me free that day. I knew the Lord's love that day. And it changed me. And now I wanted to change. I mean, I had months before looked at myself in the mirror one day. We're experts at not looking ourselves in the eye in the mirror. And I looked in my eyes in the mirror one day, and I really didn't like what I saw looking back at me. And things were getting kind of pretty hopeless for me at that point, because I didn't think I could change. But that's when God started changing me, that day. And I was in a place in the presence of God I've never known before, and only a couple of times been allowed to be in since. But I was totally set free of the spirit of addiction that day. From that day forward, cigarettes stunk to me. Even to this day, all the stuff I've been through as a Christian, getting loaded has never even been an option. It's never even a thought that comes to my mind. God set me free totally, and there's no way that I will open the door to those demons ever again.
Jeff?
Yeah.
You a better person?
I am not the same person that committed the crime 27 years ago. I have changed. The programs that were provided started that change, and 12 years ago I came to the end of myself, Larry, and I turned to the Lord.
Did you try to kill yourself before that?
No, I have not. I didn't mean it like tried to kill myself, but I came to a place where I didn't like the guy I was looking at in the mirror. Many of us here come to that place, and what makes San Quentin different is the programs. The chapel program here is just incredible, with all the volunteers that come in and spend their time, but I have grown tremendously through the classes offered here. I went through, and I now teach the Biblical Counseling Foundation self-confrontation class. There's other impact programs here. We have regular Bible studies, and I've become a part of the ministry here, and that is now my life. I live my life now for the Lord Jesus Christ according to the precepts of the Bible. Got rid of all the worldly books and stuff that I would read all the time. I started spending all my time reading the Bible. I started hanging out with the Christians, and at first they were really uncomfortable. It's kind of funny because I look back now and I read the story of Paul when he was hanging out with the Christians right after his conversion, and they were kind of scared, like, what's this guy doing here? Well, that's kind of the way I got treated by the Christians, because one of the things I used to do, I was so angry, I think, at God for giving up on me, subconsciously. This is the only reason I can figure out why I used to like to do this, but I used to like to try to lead Christians astray and into sin. And I didn't bully them or nothing, but offering them opportunities to sin. And so some of them knew, and I mean, I did not have a good reputation in the Christian community, put it that way. I was a pretty ugly guy. I worked in the maintenance department here for this factory for about 11 years. I worked a year on the floor in the factory, operating machines, and then I came into the maintenance as the vehicle and forklift mechanic. And from there, a few years ago, I was made the lead man of the maintenance department. I believe when God says the time is right, I'll get out of here. So that's what I believe, that's what I live by. About a year later, I was in the Word all the time. I was taking every class that was offered, and God was changing me. In fact, I used to pray, Lord, change me just as fast as I can stand it, and then a little bit more. But I learned, be careful about asking for that kind of stuff, because I had to back off and say, okay, Lord, just change me as fast as I can stand it. Forget about the extra. My friend's wife asked me in the visiting room one day, she had gone on a missionary journey to India. And after she came back, she asked me if I'd like to write to a friend of hers that's in India.
I asked her to pray for me a husband, a Christian husband. And you know, in India they believe in arranged marriages. So I want my friend to arrange my marriage and want her to introduce me someone that she would know on a missionary field. So I'm basically praying for somebody in the Lord and doing missionary work and reaching out to the souls and stuff like that. So when she wrote me back about Jeff at that time, all she said in the letter is that he's a good Christian, he's a Christian brother, that my husband has discipled him, and if you would like to write to him, you could. And he made a mistake and he's paying for it, and that's all she ever said.
So I went back and I told her, okay, look, I'll answer any letter that's written to me, but I'm not writing any first letters. And I pretty much forgot about it.
My biggest concern was two questions. Number one, that what was the mistake he made, that he's paying for it. And the second one is that how is he expecting a girl to write a first letter? Why wouldn't he want to write a letter? I thought about it, I went to church, I took her letter and I prayed, and I was led to write to him, and it's really strange.
Well, about a month later, I got a letter from this woman in India. And I had seen a picture, my friend's wife gave me a picture of her. But I got this letter and I read this letter, and I was really surprised and really intrigued, and I thought, wow. At the end of the letter, she wrote something that really stood out. She said, in life we have acquaintance with many, friends with few, but intimacy with just one. And I thought, wow, that's pretty deep, and how true that is. I want to get to know this person better, you know. So, but I decided right then, you know what, I'm going to get this over with right from the beginning. And I didn't have a clue what to say. I said, okay, Lord, she's a Christian, she's your daughter. You know, obviously you're in this some kind of way. So I don't know what to tell her. So I decided that I'm going to tell her everything I'd ever done. So I wrote this letter and just poured out all of this ugly stuff that I'd done my whole life. And it turned out to be like a 20-page letter. And I mailed it off thinking, okay, well, that's the end of that. You know, I'm not going to hear nothing back after that. So I pretty much kind of, you know, put it out of my mind.
While I was feeling the letter, I was trying to read the letter, I felt although God's hand was in his life, and I saw God through it. In other words, I felt like Jesus has got hold of him, and his transformation is true, and whatever has happened with him, his mistake has been forgiven. It could happen to anybody. And so who am I to judge on that? So that judgment part in my flesh is gone, and that kind of surprised me. I thought, what is this? Why am I feeling? Because this man has done something that's not easily forgiven, and I don't know. I haven't seen him. But why am I feeling the way I'm feeling, like Jesus would do? And so that's the first time I have sensed a great sense of forgiveness towards other person. So I took that letter, I went back to church, and I kind of prayed over it again, and I said, well, Lord, if this is your will, and I don't see a reason why I cannot respond, so I responded back to him.
So it was about a month later I got a reply to my letter. And it was positive. So we started writing back and forth.
So my father would look through the mail and it's from USA, and then he saw San Quentin State Prison, so of course to who it addressed to and all of that. And as I was thinking to tell him, he also found out that I've been writing to someone. And so I had a talk with him. It's more than just being a girlfriend and a boyfriend. This is the man I prayed for. A man such like Jeff that I've been writing to, someone like that I could be his wife and, you know, as a husband.
And I decided, okay, well, if there's ever anybody in this world for me, she's the one. And I spent some time in prayer. I said, Lord, you know what, I've been locked up a long time. And I said, Lord, if this is me, then I don't want to do this. But if this is you, if this is really you, I need to know. And the Lord spoke to me and he told me, this is the one I've made for you. And it kind of shocked me.
I thought, well, Lord, you know, here is another miracle. I ask of you, if this is true, then you have to show me another sign.
I was sure that she was the one, so I wrote a letter to her, making a commitment to her, asked her to marry me, and repeated the vows. This is after we've been writing. I've never met her. I never knew if I'd ever meet her face to face. I'm doing 25 to life in prison. She's in India. So I write a letter to her, making a commitment to her. And I also, at the same time, the Lord led me to write a letter to her father.
So as I finished having this conversation with my dad, the same day the mailman comes to the door, and I ran to the door, I got the mail, and there were 2 letters. All these months I've been writing to him, I've been getting only a single letter, I mean addressed to me. But this time there were 2 letters, one addressed to my father and one addressed to me. And so I opened my letter first, and I read in that letter he proposed.
The Lord told me what to say in the letter, and so I wrote her a letter, and I poured my heart out to her. I said, look, if you are in agreement with this, or, you know, take this letter to your father. If not, then just tear it up and throw it away, and that'll be that.
And I would ask of you to be my wife, and if you consider to be my wife, and if you consider me as your husband, I would want to do everything appropriate according to your culture. And I think he studied some books or got some information from him.
God told me what to do.
He said, I have also enclosed a letter for your father, and have him read. And I asked your hands in marriage.
Well, I didn't know, but the same week she was writing me the same kind of letter. We never knew if we'd ever see each other, ever. But God had told us that I made you guys for each other.
Just took the letter and gave it to my father. So my father was anxious to open the letter, and he had glasses on, and I remember very clearly that day that he laid and he had his pillow and he laid on his bed. I just remembered the whole physical gesture because it was very important to me, his every response and every move he made. I'm anticipating some kind of response to see there should be okay, or some kind of confirmation in my family also. It's not just my feelings. So here my father reads the letter. He doesn't say what the letter meant. And then he had tears. So he didn't speak, but I saw tears rolling down through his glasses. And then he folds the letters, gets really quiet, and that's unlike my father. I mean, he's very expressive, he's very tough exterior, and he speaks out and confronts the situations and stuff like that. Then he called my mother and he called my sisters, all the family, and had them all sit down, and he said, well, okay, here is the deal. And he said, your sister has been writing to someone. And he looked at my mother and he said, well, your daughter has been writing to someone, a person in the prison. And then I questioned her, and she said she has strong feelings for him. And she has a letter now from him saying that he wants to marry her. And he said, although I know I have a strong girl, but after reading the letter, I feel that he's a God-fearing man. And that's all he said. And he said, if that's what you want, that's what you believe, I will support you, and that's what's going to happen. And that's the only one statement my father ever made about Jeff.
We wrote for 2.5 years, and then in 1997, I saw her for the first time.
I'm a kind of risk taker. Okay. I'm adventurous.
So when she came, our plan was she came to marry me. When God opened the door, see, it was her heart's desire too, to marry me, to be my wife. So when God opened the door for her to come here, I proposed to her again, just, you know, in the visiting room, just because, and kind of surprised her, shocked her. I just kind of did it out of the blue. But she got there in December. We got married February the 5th. We've been married 10, going 11 years now.
Why would a man marry in prison when you're serving for life and you can't have cohabitation?
Well, I'm serving 25 to life. I have the possibility for parole. I've been eligible since 1994.
And what about marriage, though? Why would a woman marry?
She loved me. We fell in love.
But you don't have the bliss that marriage can bring.
No, but you would be amazed at how close two people can become when they when sex isn't part of the picture, and when you can communicate honestly and openly and intimately through letters and through conversations in the visiting room. We actually got to know people, and we spent more quality time talking to each other than many married couples out there today.
If eligible for parole, have you been up before the parole board?
Yes, I've been to the parole board 10, 11 times.
Still have hope?
Sure I do. When God says it's time for me to go home, I'm leaving out of here.
God has prepared me through the way, the times he was denied. He has been denied 9 times after I've been married to him. And each time I would go, I would hear him say, I'm coming home, I'm coming home. And so that would keep my hopes up.
You know, the hardest thing I ever had to do was to go out to that visiting room and tell my wife they've denied me again. For nothing, because I would get denied over and over and over for my crime. I didn't have any write-ups. I did nothing but every program available. I had done everything that I could possibly do. And because it broke her heart every time.
What gives you hope about tomorrow?
Hope for tomorrow?
Yeah.
My hope is in the Lord Jesus Christ, Larry.
That's right.
Before I met and gave my life to the Lord Jesus Christ, I really had no hope. And my life and my attitude reflected that. Used to go through terrible depressions. But I live my life to serve the Lord Jesus Christ. Whether it's in here or out there, I belong to him now. Well, finally, I went to the board in 2005 and I said, okay, Lord, look, I can't do this no more. I can't ride this emotional roller coaster anymore. If you mean for me to spend the rest of my life in prison, then I need to know now. And I'll tell my family, look, I'm not coming home. My dad died in 2004. Just get rid of all that stuff. Don't hold anything for me. Don't save nothing for me. This is it. And I told the Lord, I'll be upset for a little while. I'll be angry. I'll probably have a little tantrum. But I'm going to serve you the rest of my life. It doesn't matter. Where else do I have left to turn? I know what's back there, and I'm not going back. So I went to the board. This time, see, I'd been saying it with my lips the last 3 or 4 times. But this time, I said it with my heart, and I meant it.
Before he got out, the week before, I went to church and they had this big altar. And I came to the end of waiting and hoping that he's going to come out in a way, because I wanted to know when. And somehow I felt urged on that day on the altar to ask God that for him to get out, for him to be released. I said, Lord, he has done everything he is supposed to do, and he could be used of you if he's outside. And I need my husband home. And I've been praying for all these years, and I have gone through these denials for all these years. And I want to see him every day. I want to get up with him, and I want to spend evenings with him. I want to hold his hand. I want to experience life as his wife. So I prayed, and when I prayed, I kind of felt the answer that he's going to be out anytime soon.
I went out for deliberation, and I'm only gone like 5 minutes. Well, that's never a good sign. And I go back in, and he's reading off the spiel that they read off. And he says, we find you at this point not to be a danger to society and suitable for parole. And I'm like, huh? What? And he looked up and he smiled at me, and he started over and he read it again. And the next thing I know, I can't see, tears are coming. Kleenex, the officers are handing me Kleenex, people patting me on the back, and I was found suitable for parole.
I went to work the next day, Monday, and I got a phone call from his mother and saying to me that he's going to be out on Thursday. And I thought, oh my gosh, God, you are only a prayer away. I mean, here I asked you on Sunday, and I received a phone call.
They're asking me, you're going home? You're going home? And I'm, well, I think so. I don't know, you know. But sure enough, 1:30 the next day, they were there and picked me up, November the 8th. I was home. It's weird because it felt normal to be home, but it felt new and strange at the same time. It felt like I belonged there. I mean, like I belonged out here, I should say. And it felt good. It felt really good. And even, I've been out, what, a year and a half now or so. And some days it seems like just yesterday that I got out. Other days it seems like I've been out for 10 years. I went and reported to Pastor Steve at the church. I presented myself to my pastor and said, here I am, use me. Because see, from 1994, when I surrendered my life to the Lord, prison became seminary for me. And even when I got married, when I married Angela, it was Pastor Steve that came and married us in the visiting room. So when I got out, my whole intention was to serve the Lord in there, out here, whatever. But the day after I got out, I went to Pastor Steve at the church and I said, okay, here I am. Disciple me, use me, here I am to serve the Lord. And they didn't quite know exactly what they were going to do with me at the time, but as things worked out, there was a job position opened up, doing janitor work and stuff. So then I went to doing full-time, half my time doing mechanic and fixing stuff around the church. And then they opened a position for me in prison ministry. Now I work 20 hours a week in prison ministry. I'm actually a pastor on staff. And I didn't even realize the first day I went and saw Pastor Steve when I described what I'd been doing at the chapel. And he made some phone calls and talked to the chaplain and stuff. He come back and he said to somebody else, he said, well, he's been pastoring for the last 8 years. Well, I'd have never called it that. I'd just been doing what God had called me to do at the chapel inside. So they opened up a position. Now I work 20 hours a week in the ministry and 20 hours a week fixing things still. And as the ministry grows, my hours will shift. When you submit and surrender your life to the Lord and serve Him, He blesses you. I don't believe in luck. I'm blessed. I am blessed and highly favored by God, along with every other child of God. And one thing I've learned, I'm blessed and highly favored whether I feel like it or not. Some days I don't feel like it, but the Word says that I'm blessed. I don't believe in luck. I don't believe in coincidence. God is in complete control. Surrender your life to the Lord Jesus Christ so your life can be what He intended it to be from the beginning. That easy. But even those last 12 years in prison, from 1994 on, they were the best years that I had ever lived prior to that. Because even though I was in prison and locked up, because of my relationship with Jesus. That big emptiness inside of me was filled with what it was meant to be filled with. There's no high on earth that can equal it. There's nothing that can take its place. I won't trade it for anything. There's an underlying peace that I have now that I never had before. I wish that everyone had that. I wish that everybody knew how much God really loves them individually. I had no right to do what I did. If I could do anything to change that and bring him back, I would do that. I spend my life now trying to help other people realize the mistakes that I made and not to get caught up so someone else doesn't lose their life. The only thing I can do to try to, nothing I can do will ever make up for what I did, but if I can save some lives, it'd make it easier for me to live with. What's my response to people that say that God can't use a murderer? I would say you haven't read the Bible, because Moses was a murderer, Paul was a murderer, David was a murderer. How many more examples do you want of men that God loved and used hugely that were murderers, that took another's life? I trust God to use myself and my wife together for the glory of His kingdom.